We've been doing this for 10 years now, doing SEO, and we're pretty damn good at it, and we've gotten very consistent at it. It'd be nice to also experience that from the brand perspective. We just ran some fake ads, some like AI creative bits and pieces, and just were using it as a guide to see what can we expect to pay. A suitcase comes together. It doesn't have to be just a big box. And that's what we're really playing with and innovating with. And it's just like new study by KADI Luggage. Boom, that's the link, right? And Google sees that and goes, wow, these KADI Luggage guys, huh? They're doing studies and data around travel.
Hey, it's Nathan Bush, or Bushy, joining you from the land of the Turrbal people here in Brisbane, Australia. One of the biggest criticisms and, to be honest, frustrations that many brands have with agencies or service providers in e-commerce is that they haven't actually walked the walk of being a brand or a retailer before, and kind of makes them think that they just don't get it. Well, today we have an agency owner who's actually taken that on board themselves and have gone out and created their own brand and having huge success with it. Today, I am lucky enough to be rejoined by Harry Sanders, who is the incredible founder of SEO agency StudioHawk, Australia's largest SEO agency and partner of at Descartes. And Harry joins us because he's launched his own luggage brand called KADI, K-A-D-I, and having incredible success 12 months in. Harry first joined us on at Descartes about 3 years ago, where we talked and nerded out on all things SEO and heard about some of the incredible work that they're doing with clients such as Officeworks and Bondi Sands. But today, we wanted to leap straight into what does Harry do when he creates his own brand? Where does he start? What role does SEO play? And what is he doing differently? And it's a fascinating story. He's already launched multiple versions of the product, from weekender bags all the way through to hard-shelled suitcases, and got the first range stocked in Maya, appearing in some of Australia's most respected publications. And he tells us how he does that today. We also discuss the SEO-first principles that Harry carried into KADI when he was creating it for the first time. And Harry has this knack for explaining some of the most complex principles in the most easy to understand, basic, usable, actionable methods possible, even when it gets really nerdy in SEO. So he tells us about those principles. He also tells us why in Australia, we are underusing digital PR, and showcases the incredible success that KADI is having by leveraging that first and foremost before technical SEO. And lastly, he tells us some of the ways that he set up the business model for KADI, including running phantom ads before the product has launched, to make sure that he sets the model up correctly to have a wide distribution in retail, being able to run promotions and have D2C all at the same time right from the start. So there is so much to cover here across the KADI story. We also talk about best practice for SEO. And of course, it's not an SEO episode without diving into the future of AI and what that means for SEO and customer behavior. Without any further ado, thank you again to StudioHawk for making this episode happen. Here's my conversation with Harry Sanders, founder of StudioHawk and co-founder of KADI. Harry, welcome. Well, I was going to say welcome to Ad Descartes, but it's a welcome back to Ad Descartes. How good to have you back here, mate.
Thanks, mate. Good to be back.
A lot has changed. I think we were 3 years ago that we first had you on the podcast telling the Harry story and the StudioHawk story. So much has changed. Firstly, thank you for partnering with Ad Descartes this year. And it's been awesome to do events like Online Retailer with you and the team, as well as have your support to keep this podcast going. So thank you so much for that. But so much has changed in your world. We've obviously got a lot of changes in SEO, which we'll talk about. But you've also gone and just casually launched a consumer brand as well as an SEO agency.
Yeah, I thought I would step on over and see if it's all it's cracked up to be.
Has it cracked up well?
It has, but it's a completely different game, isn't it?
It is. So tell us about it. What inspired you to go from the cushy world of agency where you do nothing but sit around and tell clients what to do all day to actually running your own brand? What was the inspiration?
There was a couple things. So I've always wanted to do product. I love agency and I love being able to help brands grow, but there's something about seeing your brand being used. And I was hanging out with a lot of my buddies who've got e-com brands, and would walk past places and they'd be, oh, look, someone's using my business, and I'm like, that's so cool. I mean, our equivalent is you see clients and you're like, oh wow, that's super cool. I can see my client in the real world. And then the second part of it was, well, man, we do a lot of this stuff for brands, right? And that's great. Now, obviously, the deal is we grow them, they give us a retainer, but they obviously have the upside, right? It makes sense. It's very fair. I thought, well, what if I had some of the upside as well? We've been doing this for 10 years now, doing SEO, and we're pretty damn good at it, and we've gotten very consistent at it. It'd be nice to also experience that from the brand perspective. So I stepped away from the operations of StudioHawk about a year ago, so step back a little bit more. And I thought, you know what, this is the time. And a great opportunity presented itself with someone that has a lot of background in e-com. So she was able to handle the product stuff and the logistics and, background in Procter & Gamble. And I was to come in and help do the SEO and help with the marketing.
Oh, so you're the marketing guy.
That's it.
And who's your co-founder?
Mayrav Amber. So
okay.
She's done a few different businesses in the past. Quite successful, yeah.
Lovely. And was it always going to be luggage?
Yeah, it was always going to be travel, right? So we knew, especially, and everyone's always asking about July. July were coming out. They've revolutionized that travel space, and incredible story, incredible job. But I just saw there was so much more in that sector, that Aussies love travel, and there's a lot of room in that space.
Was this gut feel that there's a lot of room in that space, or did you have some SEO insight magic to that?
A little bit of column A, a little bit of column B, mate. So StudioHawk's now operating in the UK, the US, and Australia. It's great story around going global. And I'm in the US all the time. And I travel with my suitcase, and I traveled with a variety of different suitcases in the past. And I just thought, they're all kind of the same. They look different from the outside, but they're all kind of the same. And I just thought, imagine if we had bags or travel items that were more purpose built. And so that was kind of where the idea was born. And we started looking at that from a keyword volume and SEO perspective to see if there was that gap.
Okay. And did you put a special request into the product team when you were first launching to go, I've got this very specific problem when I travel. I want to see this in the products that we make?
Mate, so many times. I got about a 30% success rate on that. The product guys are very dialed in, and obviously they know what works and what doesn't. I'll be like, imagine if we had a magnetic front of the bag or something. And they're like, yeah, cool. So on the plane, that magnet's going to come off and then they're going to lose the front part of their baggage. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's good. Got to listen to the
team. You're
the
product guys and I'm the marketing guy.
That's it.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. So tell us about, for people who haven't come across KADI, launched in 2023. You said that you've stepped away from the operation about a year ago to really focus in on growing it. What's the USP behind KADI? You kind of gave us an insight there, but like you said, we do have amazing brands out there like July. Big shout out to Ethan, because he's going to hate me when he hears about us doing this episode together, all the way through to your Samsonites, your Antlers, everyone of that world that's been around for a while. What's the USP for KADI?
Yeah, so I think, how we describe it is you've got your Julys, your Samsonite, your Antlers, a lot of fantastic brands. And they're really focused around the positioning and the visual identity of the product, right? Which is great. And most of them, with the exception of Antler, are probably more premium kind of, expensive. KADI's USP is more around having a premium mass product that's designed with kind of modularity or different travel experiences. So one of the things that we're known for is our weekender bag. So not specifically just luggage, though we do sell a lot of luggage, but we have this weekend bag that is so popular because it's got this little compartment at the bottom and it's waterproof and it's where you can put your shoes or other soft items. So you can separate out your luggage. And so girl weekend and stuff like that, that just pops off. And then we've got a backpack, which has got a similar mechanism, which is we launched about a month ago and that's doing really well. And the USP is kind of, we say, innovating the way that people pack. So I'm sure, Nathan, when we went to Goldie together, we had very different configurations in our suitcase, right?
Are you saying I'm disorganized?
I'm saying I'm disorganized. One of us is, certainly. And, there's packing cubes, but there's a lot of innovations to be made in the way that a suitcase comes together. It doesn't have to be just a big box. And that's what we're really playing with and innovating with.
I hate packing. It's the worst activity in the world.
Yeah, me too, mate. That's why I'm trying to make it as streamlined, as efficient as possible. So you can take stuff from your backpack plug it straight into your suitcase. So you have like a bag always ready to go, and just different bags for different occasions.
And from a production perspective, obviously that's a brand new world for you, but luckily you've partnered up here with some experts in the space. Have you run into many challenges as you come into it fresh, full of ideas? Are there many restrictions around what you can and can't do, or what people are willing to manufacture?
I mean, it's funny. It reminds me a lot of programming, right? And bear with me here. In programming, sometimes someone might say something, they're like, oh, we need to change this title on all the SKUs that we have. And you're like, that's like a week worth of dev hours. And they're like, what? It's because it affects so many different things. And then sometimes it might be like, oh, we need to change this whole page to look completely different. And you're like, yeah, that's probably 2 hours work. And as a programmer, it's funny because you know what tasks are really easy and what are really hard, but might seem easy.
And the flow-on effects to
Totally. Product's a bit similar, right? You're like, oh, okay, cool. Oh, we're doing new zippers. Cool. YKK. That sounds great. Let's roll those out. And they're like, cool. Product cost of that is blah per zipper. And now the bag costs an extra $20. And you're like, well, hold on. There's only like 2 zippers. How does that flow on? And they're like, well, because and it's just these cascading things. And e-com owners will know exactly what I'm talking about. I understand their world now. Like, I'm not just throwing SEO at everything. I understand that there's a bigger game at play. So that's what's been fun to learn.
That's awesome. And how good that you can now be in the shoes of some of the founders, because I know that you work with businesses all the way from Officeworks through to founder-led businesses, but so nice to be able to be in their shoes. And when they're talking about problems, you go, oh, actually, I had that problem as well.
100%. Yeah.
When you set this business up, did you set it up intentionally at the start? 2 questions here on how you set it up. Did you set it up to be global? Let's start there. Was the intention that it would always go global from the start, even though you started in Australia?
It's kind of a complicated one. Not really. We kind of looked at Australia and, I'm sure we'll come to it. We launched it into Maya, right? So we launched it in collaboration with Maya because we knew it would get immediate backing behind it. And also it gives us the funds to then develop the product further, because we're on kind of iteration 1 of the product at the moment. And there's so many exciting things in the second iteration of the product that we're launching soon that our partnership with Maya has been able to give us. And also the customer data from all of my customers. And so that's been huge. But there's been opportunities, but we really want to focus on Australia.
And now with all the tariffs, you were like, fuck that. I'm staying here.
Fuck that. But we've both got the experience to take it global if that's what we choose. But yeah, we'll see where the brand takes us.
That's not a small feat, getting Maya to partner with you in the first edition of the product. How'd you pull that off?
I think the great thing about this not being my first business, there's so many cheat codes, right? So I would always look at people that have I would look at KADI in the past and be like, man, these guys must have got so lucky or whatever. How the hell do they do that, right? Because when you start your first business, you can't really walk into Maya and say hey, we're going to do this. But the great thing about having
you can, they just won't like it when you set up on the shop floor and they haven't approved it. Yeah.
They call security and you're just like, well, I'm just trying to sell some bags. But the great thing about having some prior success is it's not like those superannuation ads where they always do, prior success does not dictate performance, whatever, the spiel they do. Brands like working with you because you'll be like, well, I've done this already. I think I could take this brand here and I've worked with these brands, blah, 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 blah. And they're like, great, cool. Let's do something. So you're not that scrappy, well, you might still be that scrappy entrepreneur, but it's not your first rodeo.
You've built things before.
Yeah, you've built things before. We've built 100, plus team members and built countless e-com brands for other people.
Were Maya a StudioHawk client?
I can't confirm or deny that one, but we're certainly doing some things.
Okay. All right. So there was a connection at some point there.
Yeah.
And then my second follow-up question for that, because I went onto the site and had a good look around, you're running at the moment a 40% off sale.
Yes.
And I'm assuming because, and it might be finished by the time this episode goes out, but I'm also assuming that because you have set this up with Maya and going into retail, that you've set up the pricing model and structure so that you can discount and you can give away margin right from the start. Was that important?
That'd be very smart, Nathan. Yeah, that's exactly what happened. When you're in retailers with Maya, they expect a discount. The Australian consumer expects a discount strategy. Now, you can go against that. Brands like July have been very successful in going against that, but it's a different audience. We're not necessarily targeting the same people of July. And so for us, we went into it knowing that. And it's also made it very difficult as well sometimes on the D2C side, because we'll be competing, our own brand will be competing with Maya versus our D2C. And it kills your, one of the reasons why we're so deep in SEO in KADI is because from an ads perspective, our conversion rate sometimes, if someone will just shop around on Maya, they'll see a better deal there and go there. And that's rough when you've spent the money to acquire the customer. Now, obviously, it's great. It's great for us in the long term because, more sales through Maya, good for us, but not so good on the margin. So, but yes, to answer your question, that was definitely part of the strategy. And now we're going down that path of how do you create distinct product lines that differentiate.
Okay. And then how do you hold value in that when you've got customers who can shop around and there might be different pricing in different channels, or they see that it goes on sale off and on throughout the year? How are you going about creating value? Is it through the unique product features that you're pushing that?
Yeah, I think you really still have to create value in the quality of the product. And I think one thing we're very lucky with that, it feels like you're getting a good deal. And that's very key to these things, right? When a consumer buys a KADI product, they'll be like, oh, wow, I can't believe I got this 40% off or whatever promotion we're running, because it feels like, and it's the same material as a July suitcase, right? It's the same polycarbonate, it's the same, materials, but you're getting it at a value price.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. And then we also play with things like gifts with purchase that certainly help, and color bundles. There's all sorts of ways to kind of then produce that value that people want to see.
When coming up with the pricing structure and the business model, was there anything in your head from what you've seen over your 10 years of building StudioHawk and building with brands that were non-negotiable for you when you were starting your first consumer product?
I think the biggest non-negotiable was like knowing what our cost per acquisition was and working back from that. So modeling out and running like fake ads essentially to see what kind of CPAs we might be playing with when we have real customers, and then going back to the customers that order and go, hey, sorry, this isn't a real product, but we're working on it.
Tell me how you did that. So talk me through that. How far before launch were you running fake ads?
Like pretty much, we were pretty far along with product, and then we just kind of ran some ads. Honestly, it sounds cooler than it was. We just ran some fake ads, some like AI creative bits and pieces, and just were using it as a guide to see what can we expect to pay.
Wow. And so they run it, and you're talking Meta and Google?
Yeah, Meta, Google, and then we started playing around with keyword difficulty for SEO. Obviously, we couldn't do an SEO campaign on a fake product, but it certainly was kind of, how we piloted it.
Okay. So you understand your cost per conversion or cost per customer and then built out from there. Has the experiment lived up to the real world once you've launched the product? Was it accurate?
Great question. I love this phrase actually, directionally accurate. It was like we knew what to expect coming in.
Gave you enough information.
Totally. But it wasn't like that it held there, nor did we expect it to hold there. Like sometimes it changes around, right? Like any e-com business. But it gave us enough to know, okay, there's opportunity in this category.
Okay, cool. And that would have validated your thinking that you're in the right category as well, I suppose.
Yeah.
And that there was enough demand with that message. So you're going out and you're going to launch and you're putting your marketing guy hat on, the product teams are off doing their thing, doing what they do best. When you look at the tech stack for setting up the KADI site and the KADI process, where are you going straight away? What were your tech non-negotiables?
That was easy because you just worked with, again, that many. You got to remember, we've worked with hundreds of e-com brands, right?
Yeah.
And you just see these brands, you're like, oh my God, what is this, right? Like, what is these choices? And a lot of the time, it's not the brand's fault. It's just they don't know what they don't see, right? They were only working on one brand.
Yeah, you get to play with everything.
Exactly. So I went straight to Shopify, easy, figurable, customizable, rather than, messing around with really complex setups. Straight to Klaviyo, really easy email kind of consumer stuff. What other tools did we build in the stack? There's quite a few, like quite niche ones that we just kind of rolled in, mostly around I know the order editing guys really well, so that was a great one to roll in to just make it as seamless as possible. And now we're playing around with new tools for putting the UGC up on our product pages and experimenting around with that. And all of that stuff, we know what tools to use and not use.
Yeah, nice. Because even looking at the site, it's a nice site, but you haven't overly complicated it or created a huge amount of custom functionality in there. So has that allowed you just to go best of breed basically across the stack?
Yeah. And then look, we can go deeper into those areas. It's about building an SEO foundation, which is what we started with for KADI. It's like SEO first principles from day one for this website, right? And that's been awesome. And then it's now going, okay, cool. We want to change the weekender page and make it more of a hero product. We want to incorporate more UGC. Now we've got a bunch of press about KADI. We now want to do a featured in section. I think a lot of people, when they start a business, they copy. The worst mistake I see people make is they see a website like Nike or, a big brand and they're like, I'm going to copy that. I'm going to replicate the big guys. It's the worst mistake you can make, right? You really need to start in steps.
Okay, so let's talk through those steps. What are those SEO first principles that you stuck to when you're building out the site for the first time?
So first principles, your category pages, right? Your category pages need to be like elite, right? Because two reasons now. First of all, that's where Google wants to send traffic. Second of all, now that's where AI wants to kind of fetch products and dig deeper into. So your category page needs to have internal links. It needs to have text at the top, so it gives some context to Google and AI what this actual page is about. That was a non-negotiable, even just having the different information architecture, we call it. So you'll notice that there's shop by color, shop by like range. So we do really well for specific colors of luggage. We do really well in terms of rankings for like kids luggage, and we really drill down into those quite niche specific terms because we knew we're not just going to rank out of the gates for luggage.
Yes.
But if we get more niche and specific with our information architecture and how we lay out this website, that's going to give us traffic.
It's a really good call out around category pages in that the way you're thinking about category pages is like, what are the categories you can own, not necessarily just creating pages for every piece of your primary navigation menu.
100%.
Is that fair?
That's exactly right. So you'll notice we kind of very deliberate with our category pages and very deliberate on our main menu with what categories we call out. Like our kids is on our top level category because we know where we can rank really well for kids luggage, right? So that's a major call out. Same with the weekender. We call out things like soft shell versus hard shell at the very top in our navigation because when people come to the site, they either want a soft shell or a hard shell. They don't want to see a lot of brands just do it by luggage, right? But people know if they want, soft or hard. So you've got to separate these things out and make them very easy categories. So if someone came to it from search or through AI, they're immediately on the page they want to be on.
Makes a lot of sense. And just on that text, I think some people struggle with category pages. They either go hell for leather and create all these beautiful custom pages for category pages, or they kind of copy and paste a paragraph from GPT and chuck it at the top, and then they just have their standard filtered list of products underneath that. What's your approach to the level of effort you should put into content on those category pages?
Honestly, I think you can, again, this is where it depends what stage. If you're starting out, just having a paragraph there is great. If you have a ton of products, then you can start faceting down that. If you don't, you can have a bit of text and maybe some internal links there if the site's quite complicated. Ours isn't that complicated, so we haven't really gone hard on the internal linking. But, when I think about our work with Bondi Sands and stuff, we've gone really deep into the above the fold, at the bottom of the website, really faceted navigation across, and that's allowed them to really boom. And you'll see in KADI, if you're listening to this maybe 2 years later, you'll see very different category pages probably have faceted navigation, probably have that below the fold content because we've now got more authority and more opportunities to leverage that. Whereas when you try and over optimize that at the very start of your e-commerce journey, well, you're doing just that, you're over optimizing. And so you're just not getting the yield you should.
What do you mean by over optimizing as a new player? Like, I didn't realize that was a thing that you could over optimize.
Yeah. So, this happens a lot. So basically, when you're starting out, if you try and have the level of categories or information architecture or the frequency of blog posts or content that all these big players are putting out, you just disappear, right? If you just try and start with thousands of SKUs.
They just get overwhelmed and they just don't know where to look.
Totally. You have a semblance of PageRank or authority, we'll call it for the purpose of this, that if you dilute too far, Google doesn't know who to show you for. AI doesn't know who to show you for. So by being really specific in with what content you put on a page and how you call it out, that's how you want to kind of own that, rather than, putting out a ton of content and then Google's just like, yeah, I'm not sure. You don't have the kind of credibility to back this up.
Yeah, you're not that important, and I'm not going to go to the effort to look through all your pages and all your content.
Exactly.
Okay, that's a really good way of putting it. Thank you. All right, so that's one SEO first principle. What else were you thinking about?
Digital PR. I've been talking about this a lot. It is big globally. We are behind in Australia.
You were talking about this when we did our podcast 3 years ago.
I know, man. And you know what, Nate? We are not much further, which is good for KADI, to be fair.
Exactly. Makes it hard to sell at StudioHawk, though.
Yeah, exactly. But, we've been in Escape and we've got all these big travel publications. And if you look at our SEMrush graph, I mean, it just looks awesome. You can see the moment where these big publications are kicking in. You can see us already. Keep in mind, we've only been really doing this site for 6 months because we've been in Maya. So it's crazy to see just the uptick we're immediately seeing.
And how are you doing that? Is that old school PR, like reaching out, trying to...
The process is more about coming up with database stories. So some of the stories we ran that was super successful for us is best and worst times to fly. So it's very different than traditional PR because we're not really saying, oh, hey, this is our new luggage. You should, it's cool. We're saying, we're going to Escape and we're saying, and this is another one we did, here's the airline with the most hidden fees, right? And so Escape want to run that story. They'd love to run a story about, hidden fees. These big publications don't want to run a story about your new luggage brand. There's a million luggage brands. So all you do is you get the data together, and we have a data research team and an ideation team, and they kind of bring it together and craft this piece. And all it is, Nathan, it's crazy. It's this whole piece of content, and it's just like, new study by KADI Luggage. Boom, that's the link, right? And Google sees that and goes, wow, these KADI Luggage guys, huh? They're doing studies and data around travel. I know they're a travel brand. I understand that they're in luggage. We're going to pump these guys up. They have a lot of authority. They have a lot of big names in the travel space talking about them. And that's the key.
That's really smart. I love that leading with data. And it reminds me of when we interviewed the lads from Booze Bud. Because they were one of the first to really do this well in Australia. They used to do their annual survey, beer survey. I can't remember exactly what it was called, but they used to do it every year. It became a kind of a thing every year that the outlets would eventually reach out to them to go, hey, have you got that data around drinking habits and what people are asking for? And that's how they essentially built their brand and built their SEO authority that way, through their own data.
Yeah, so there's a lot of first-party data if you have it. Otherwise, KADI didn't have a lot of first-party data, so we just started creating stories and using it. That, yeah, you'd be amazed the backlinks you can get when you're providing really good kind of content and data, and the links, and especially in AI, Nathan, because AI looks at a bunch of different sources and references. If you're in these different references and sources, you're getting cited more.
Okay, cool. Any other SEO first principles you had front of mind?
Honestly, those were the main ones. Just kind of laying out the pages. Everything else is fairly common sense. Good pages, making sure our category pages were good, but really just going hard on digital PR. Like if you look at KADI's SEO, you'll be like, yeah, like fairly basic. There's nothing crazy going on. But then you look at the digital PR, be like, whoa.
Yeah, I thought Harry was really good at this. This is really basic.
And all of a sudden you just see it ramping, just being pumped up by externals. And that's because, a lot of people really focus on the technical SEO when they're starting out. And I always say it's one of the biggest mistakes you can make. Like whether you're using H2 tags or H1 tags when you're starting out and you've got like no traffic is not going to be the difference between you getting 1 million sessions a month and getting 10 sessions a month. Like it's just not. At a bigger size, at a bigger scale, Officeworks might see a 4% increase. 4% is great when you're doing 1 million. 4% is not good when you're doing 10 people. So focus on the big things like digital PR, which is going to get you to like now we're doing thousands of sessions organically, and that's climbing every month. I think we're going to hit hopefully 10,000 this month. So
that's awesome.
That's kind of where you want to be moving it to.
It's a really interesting juxtaposition, isn't it, when you think about what moves the needle on SEO? Because on one hand, you've got the technical side, which you made a great point there. It's not going to get you where you need to be. It'll get you the little percentages. But, everyone pictures, someone in their bedroom doing all the things late at night, optimizing things, backlinks, all that sort of stuff. But then actually the real grunt works happens in more of your agency style, PR, form relationships, have conversations, get it out there into the world rather than focusing inwards.
Yeah,
which is not the perception of SEO.
it's funny, isn't it? Yeah, and I think SEO is very different than, and we spoke about this even 3 years ago. It's funny.
Yeah.
Like SEO is very different than how people perceive it. And, if you can understand first principles of SEO, you're smarter than 90% of SEO specialists, right?
Yeah.
So I think a lot of people have been carried away with, it's like I'm learning a lot about media buying, right? Never been my world previously about meta and stuff. And now obviously we see in media buying, and everyone talks about it, that it's not so much about the buying or the targeting, it's all about the creative, right? And SEO is not so much about, the tiny little changes. It's more of the actual strategy behind the SEO. And that's where I really see SEO developing and evolving.
Is it difficult for you to jump on board the paid ad bandwagon? Like obviously being a leader in Australia on SEO, which is, well, some people call it free, but we know it's not free. And then having to pay Zucks every time that you get a click, does that hurt a little bit?
Oh, I tell you what, it's made me appreciate SEO even more than I thought I could. Like I was like peak appreciation, and now I'm like, geez, no wonder brands love this.
I really love you, SEO.
Yeah, paid ads, right? Necessary evil. And for some things, like we really want to focus on our weekender bags and the features, the only way to do that is through like that storytelling, that visual content, right? But having said that, is so freaking expensive. Like StudioHawk is so busy at the moment because so many brands are like, we are just sick of spending so much money on paid ads, and we need to be getting that through SEO. And I think this, announcement from Google, a couple of days ago at the time of recording this, where they said that the best way to optimize for AI search is to optimize for SEO, has been a big push for brands as well, to then go, okay, if that's going to be the new frontier, we need to be, dialed in this game. But yeah, to answer your question, mate, like it does sting every time. And it just makes me think, how do I get more free traffic? Again, it's not quite free, but it's certainly cheaper than paid ads. Like every dollar I'm putting in digital PR and stuff, which, by the way, Lawrence Hitches, if you're listening to this, is the general manager of StudioHawk. You need to give me a way better deal on digital PR because I'm paying full rates.
Don't you just tell Lawrence what to do?
I wish, mate. I wish it was that simple. He wears the pants around here.
I know, and he's coming for podcasts too now.
Yeah,
I've got a beef with him.
Yeah, what's the go, mate? But yeah, so but it's a lot cheaper even than paying for paid ads. It just is.
But you're still doing it.
I still have to. You still got to like build the brand. But I would love to get it to a point where, we've had a few clients now that have pretty much switched off paid ads. They're just running off SEO, and they're so profitable.
As you looked at this, launching KADI into market, obviously SEO's at the heart of it, paid ads is there. Any other marketing activity that you've started with, or are those two kind of the foundations?
Those are the two foundational ones. We're looking at more, starting to look at viral content and stuff like that. But that's more down the line. And we're with KADI, it's kind of like a slow build. We're trying not to just throw resources at it. We're trying to really find that product market fit. We're quite patient with the brand. It's something that StudioHawk taught me. People that are trying to get really quick wins, or just like, they make short-term decisions because they're always just trying to like, make massive gains. But if you compound, like if we're doing 5% improvements per month, right? Like in terms of our efficiencies, not necessarily our sales, that's huge, right? That's huge. So just work on the things and focus on the things that are working for us. And then as the team grows, as we're making more margin, we can invest in doing other things. But I mean, the amount of times I've seen e-com brands just dilute themselves by trying to do everything. And as a result, they do nothing well.
I think that also comes back to how you started, making sure that you had a market fit and understanding the costs, your main costs that were going to be there, and then pricing accordingly so you're not scrambling every month to hit stupid targets, right? And that's 100%. Where you get caught out.
Exactly right.
Let's talk about AI.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Google, is it going to be around in 5 years?
It's weird. I think a lot of people think I have a horse in this race, and I used to think I did. Whether it's like, oh, okay, what if Google dies? It's like, okay, well then Bing or ChatGPT or whatever the hell it is, or Bing, ChatGPT, same thing. I think Google's winning. You asked me that 2 years ago, I would have given you a completely different answer. I would have been like,
I'm the same. I've tried to use as much Google AI as I can at the moment because I think their roadmap is phenomenal.
And so I'm now, I still have ChatGPT, but more and more I'm using Gemini now. Right?
Yep.
And I think what brands, not to get too into it, but I think people are realizing that it's not like people have no loyalty to whether it's ChatGPT or Gemini or Claude, like people just swap to whatever's the best model, right?
Mhm.
So this whole AI arms race, it's kind of been for moot at this point, from my opinion. But Google's just got so much data, so much time. Remember, they were doing generative AI even before ChatGPT was. They just didn't want to release it because they were worried about the implications. But we're seeing this big shift in, like, all the data suggesting that there's a long answer to this. I'm trying to distill it down. So people are using AI and traditional search engines right now, right? That's what's happening. Traditional search engine, you can look at Google's quarterly reports, are still growing. AI use is still growing, but they're both still growing. People are using both, right? So that's kind of cool. You know, people go, well, what if Google rolls out AI mode, which they have in most regions of the world now, and we've been playing with in the US and UK. It hasn't been that much of an uptake, and it's very similar to the traditional kind of SEO stuff. And then the second part to all of this is all of the backing of how Gemini, ChatGPT rank things, as I said earlier, is all kind of underpinned by search. They're just putting another layer on top of it to then prioritize and do all sorts of cool things. And they do something fascinating called fan out queries. I don't know how deep you want me to go into this, but
let's do it. Lawrence did on our webinar. It was good. So let's go down.
All right, let's do it. Well, I like giving the simple version of these because I feel like everyone can give really complex, crazy answers. But a fan out query, how it used to work is you do a search, Google does a search for that keyword, wham, bam, here's your 10 blue links. Nice and easy worked for 28 years. Good system. Now what they've realized is, well, people don't often know what they want. It's not the search engine's fault. It's just people just type in things and they don't always get what they want. So what they now do in AI, because it's super smart, is it does what's called a fan out query. So let's say I say, best SEO company in Australia, right? You're like, okay, cool. Previously, that would just return a bunch of links. Now it goes, what is an SEO company? What makes an SEO company great? SEO company reviews, blah, 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 locations. And it does like maybe 20 different searches, gets like an average and then like goes to those websites and then compiles an answer for you. Now, the higher you rank in Google, obviously, the better you're going to do in that compilation because it's basically just doing 10 different searches and looking at the results that come up the top of those searches. But that's kind of the key to it all. So now people have got to think about what related fan out queries might be getting served when someone searches your brand. And Perplexity actually does that automatically. It tells you what queries it's doing. So super cool tool if you're looking to have a look at what searches someone might do.
Really interesting. Perplexity, I've wrote about this in the newsletter today, which might not be relevant by the time this goes out, but they just partnered with PayPal. Did you see that?
Yeah, I did.
And
crazy.
they're giving link your PayPal account and you get Perplexity Pro free for 12 months.
Yeah.
So I was like, I'm onto that. So I'm playing around with that at the moment. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. I think all these guys are just trying to find the way to be relevant and where the product market fit is, which, if I worked at one of these companies, I'd be pretty scared of like Google and all these things. It's like, you're really struggling, I think, to find the product market fit.
At the same time, I saw this meme the other day. It was like, our kids are going to look at us so weird when they're like older to go, I can't believe you just typed in 1 or 2 words and then you picked the best of 10 blue links to follow.
It sounds crazy to think about it. Like you'd what would you search like luggage? Like buy luggage. And everyone's like, I need to rank for buy luggage. I need to dominate these terms. And now it'll like, if you type luggage into ChatGPT, it almost just sends you back a question mark. It's like, what do you want? Like,
give me some freaking context here.
Yeah. Now it's like, how long's your trip? Where are you traveling? And then it starts recommending stuff, which is, definitely the future. But I certainly think that I was shocked that people are using both. But then I thought about it and I use both. So it does make sense.
On the fan out queries, does that make it hard? Because the way you explain it's really great. But as a brand, you go, so instead of like picking the keywords that I really want to rank for and going hard on those keywords, do I now have to pick those keywords and then times it by 10 because of all the fan out queries that I've got to rank for? Because in the balance of probabilities that the LLMs are going to rank me on, I need to kind of show up in all. Does it actually make it really hard for brands to optimize what they want to optimize for on LLMs, or is it just following the same SEO principles?
It's the same principle. So I think if brands are still thinking about like keywords haven't been that, and maybe this is a controversial take, haven't been that like big of a thing in SEO for like 3 years, like maybe longer.
Hmm.
Like I don't go to a brand and go, great, I'm going to optimize you just for hard shell luggage and you're not going to rank for anything else. Like that's the term we're going for. Like it doesn't work that way because, you're building an entity, you're building authority and you're building topical authority. And these are all cool sounding words, but it basically just means you're building expertise in a particular product or subject that you have, right?
Hmm.
And you're going deep in that. So if you're thinking about SEO as still like putting the right keyword on your page a million times, you're starting at the wrong start line. So does it make it harder for brands? I would say SEO is harder for brands in general. It's a whole
Hmm.
new game now. There's just so much nuance to it. But does it mean it's harder to optimize? No, it just means that you need to continue building out your authority and continuing to niche down. Like we're seeing brands like Kogan and Temple and Webster, I actually really want to write a post about this if I had more time, really suffering in SEO, right? Really
Mm.
suffering because over years they've just broadened out their product catalog so much that no one really knows what their niche is, what their authority is anymore, nor does Google.
And is it also getting harder for them? And I'll pick on Kogan because I don't mind picking on them. That search and AI is also taking into account context. So it's not just how often you show up, but it will go, well, actually, I'll have a look on Reddit and see what the sentiment is here
Yeah.
before I recommend this to you.
100%. Yeah, there's all sorts of like sentiment analysis it'll do. It'll give you pros and cons. Reddit's become a big thing that these LLMs look at. And I think there's a lot of hype around. I've been using Reddit for honestly 16 years, too long. I love Reddit, and I looked at my other monitor just now, and I've got Reddit open, so that's awful. But it is like brands think they can just jump on it. Like the only real way to participate in Reddit is if people are already talking about your brand. You've got a decently sized brand, and then you can look at what people are saying, and you can comment and reply, and it's almost like a customer support channel, like a forum, right? But if you go in thinking like a marketer, thinking, "Oh, I'm going to put my product in Reddit, and like I'm going to blow up." Oh yeah, people are going to kill you. Like people hate capitalism in Reddit. So
Have you searched yourself on Reddit?
I have once. Luckily, I'm not that important. There's like a couple random things, but nothing bad. So if you're watching this, please don't post something bad. But you can you can then kind of reply and kind of get involved.
Yeah.
But if you're
Get
a brand,
involved in the conversation rather than trying to
that's the
dominate it.
key. Yeah, get involved. But if you don't already have a big brand, then you're not.
When you wrote copy and created the landing pages and everything else you did for KADI, did you do anything differently for AI? So there's a lot of talk, obviously, using Shopify's knowledge base was a tip that's been shared here recently by Heather at Nutrition Warehouse. She saw that 300% increase in traffic from LLMs once she got around to doing that. Talking a lot about getting schemas right, talking about making sure we got FAQs structured correctly, like the importance of that. Is there any tips around that to make sure that it's set up properly more for an AI engine?
Look, there's a lot of kind of things you can do that are like more hot tips. Look, AI, it's really interesting. I don't think you need to intrinsically write different for AI. AI's job is to comb through trillions of words and synthesize that into meaning. That's what it does incredibly well, right? That's literally its purpose. People try and use it for data analysis or marketing. It's not designed for that. It's designed to synthesize and understand content, right? So having said that, like you want your content to be authoritative, you want it to be, FAQs help a lot. Some easy kind of hacks we have are kind of like on blog posts, having it so that you can have a button to just have it all like view this in ChatGPT or whatever, and so it feeds up straight into an LLM. Those are kind of little hacks, but in terms of the way you go about content, nothing at this stage suggests massive changes outside of like a focus on original content, right? Like, and I think this isn't a new perspective, but if you're just spinning up AI category pages and you're not editing that at all, then that's a bad idea. Right?
Yeah.
Edit it at least. It needs to be edited. Please, guys. Please.
Please. And tell me about the traffic that you're seeing, when you talked about we are doing both. We're using Google and we're also using LLMs. Talk me through the traffic that you're seeing come from both onto the KADI site. Are you seeing much difference in behavior or conversion from the entry path?
Big time. Okay, so this is a fun one. So again, we have hundreds of clients at StudioHawk that we can look at their data. There are so few we're talking about even across our brands with the most AI visibility, they're getting 0.1% of their like sales or like revenue through like an AI like
Yes.
Perplexity or AI mode or whatever to a purchase. I think that'll improve, that'll go up, but people tend to do this. They'll use AI to research a product, then copy that brand name, go to their website and purchase the product. So it comes through as a direct traffic source, when in reality, it's probably coming through AI. I think the real shame of AI, I think it's a massive opportunity for SEO. I think it's a massive opportunity for a lot of e-com brands. I think the tracking is going to be a bloodbath. I think it's going to be like Meta when they removed the pixel, right? And there's just so many steps removed now. I can tell you we're doing all these changes and visibility is going up, and you'd be like, oh, how much more traffic are you getting? Well, I can't really tell you much, but I can tell you we're getting more conversions. Now that's tricky, right? So I do think the quality of the traffic is obviously much higher. There's a much more commercial intent behind the traffic, conversion rates, all those kind of things. But yeah, I think the trackability across the board for a lot of brands is not going to be that good. But I almost think brands in a way are kind of used to that.
Yeah, I was about to say it. So I think we've got two schools of brands at the moment. Those who have almost given up on attribution and just like, it is what it is. Like we'll use MER or we'll use whatever it is to kind of get an overall view on what we're doing, whether it's going up or down. And those who are still seeking that silver bullet in attribution. From a agency perspective, do you even try and justify that anymore?
Well, we have to. We have to justify, why a client would spend. That's honestly it's very different being on brand side. I don't really have to. I know it's working, right? I can see my visibility graph increasing, right? That's all I'm really worried about. I can see conversion, I can see visibility. But if I was, a brand owner, and I get it now because they're working on a million things. I used to be like, how do brands not understand how important SEO is? I just frankly don't get it. Now I see, because they're working across paid, they're working on product development, they're working on a million different things, dealing with freaking influencers. Don't even get me started. And by the time they look at SEO and they're just like, okay, I don't understand the difference between non-branded attribution or branded. I don't understand what this visibility chart in SEMrush that someone's feeding me, graphs going up. Okay, what is this? I get how they don't have the time or sometimes the headspace to really understand it. But I think for me as a brand owner with KADI, I'm not that worried about attribution. I'm worried about my visibility charts going up in SEMrush because that does dictate my SEO and my sales. So if my non-branded visibility is going down, big problem, right? Big problem. But if my non-branded visibility is going up, great, no problem. And then I look at, attribution more in my meta ads, paid ads, but even that's not perfect. Sometimes they bleed over. We use Triple Whale, which is a great tool for that, but I really do think that you can get a baseline, like something somewhere in the middle is nice. You can't go, I don't know about any of my channels. I don't know what's working. I just do them. Like, that's like, okay, that's kind of dumb. Or it's like, I track every single channel's return on ROAS and profitability. And you're like, okay, well, that's kind of dumb because it just doesn't work like that either. It's not, there's no silver bullet. Somewhere in the middle where you're like, that's weird. This changed recently year on year, or this is different, or I was expecting.
You're looking for the outliers.
Yeah, exactly. That's useful, right? So if you're sitting around being like patting yourself on the back because you're like, oh, wow, direct traffic's up 50% in this past 6 months, but my SEO stayed the same and my ads have stayed the same. That's incredible. Well, where do you think that direct traffic is coming from? It's coming from either your ads or your AI or your SEO. Like, I mean, that's where you got to look into.
Yeah, cool. That makes a lot of sense. You explain things so well, Harry. You mentioned there SEMrush and Triple Whale. Are there any other tools that you rely on to get that visibility and to track your marketing?
We've got like a internal tool we call Hawk Pulse, which is like an AI visibility tool. Look, I'm not going to go on this whole rant about like proprietary tools. They're great to have. You can do a lot of what we do through SEMrush. It's just nice to also have a bit of visibility on the fan out queries and where we're placed. But obviously, it's not feasible for an e-com brand to build out like proprietary tool like that, right? And the tools that are on market, like the reason why we built our own, are just so freaking expensive and just bulky. That's why we kind of developed a tool to do that for us and our brands. But that's the only other thing that I would say we use for visibility. But you can do, like I said, you can do most of it with SEMrush and Triple Whale.
Yeah, cool.
But again, I mean, SEMrush, those guys that listen to this, they need to hook me up with discount too. We're paying like 20 grand US a month with those guys. I mean, not just KADI, but yeah, tools like that are expensive.
If you can't get a discount with SEMrush as Australia's largest dedicated SEO agency,
mate.
We are all screwed.
Mate, you are telling me, Nathan. You are telling me.
Okay. I really love your reflection before around the empathy that you have for brands now when they're dealing with so much stuff. You know, you talked about influencers and everything else, and you're in this of what I've always respected about StudioHawk is that you go, we're an SEO agency. We're not trying to do anything else. We're just bloody good at SEO. Have you changed anything at StudioHawk based on what you've learned around running a brand at KADI for the last 12 months?
Honestly, I think it's just more empathy. We're a room of, 120 SEO specialists, right? And we think about SEO all day, every day. We literally have murals on the wall that says SEO never sleeps because we have the Melbourne office signs off, and the London office kicks on, and the Atlanta office kicks on, and it's 24/7. But like I was saying earlier, it's hard when we don't feel like brands understand it or respect it or give it the love. But now I just have a deeper understanding of just the amount of things that they're thinking about. Like if we think about one thing, brands have to think about many, which is, makes me love what we do at StudioHawk a little bit because it's, you can kind of find someone to do SEO and have it done, but then you've just got so many channels. But the biggest thing we've done differently is more just having our own test environment. I mean, the amount of tests we run for StudioHawk on KADI now are great, and having people be able to fiddle around with it and play with it and see what it's like for a real brand outside of obviously we can't test stuff on clients without their permission. It's been great for doing that.
You can just run wild.
Run wild. I've been playing with some AI stuff. I accidentally de-indexed a site for an hour. Yeah, just fun stuff like that. And I got this ping in my email that I was playing with some settings, vibe coding. That's dangerous, vibe coding. And just get an alert from this monitoring system we use. And it's like, hey, your robots.txt is forbidding people. I'm like, I didn't even touch the robots.txt. But anyway, it's a fun story.
How good. All right. Also, I was going to ask you, now that you own a travel company, that must have some pretty good tax implications when you go on holiday, doesn't it?
Mate, look, now we're really thinking deeper.
Now we're thinking. We're thinking.
Mate, I hate holidays. I just like to road test my luggage. No, that's what I tell the ATO. I hate holidays, mate. I wouldn't do it if I didn't have to.
Exactly.
But I have to test the luggage, guys. I have to test it.
Exactly.
Well,
if you don't do it, who's going to do it? You can't leave it up to influencers.
Who's going to do it? But it is so cool. I mean, just final thoughts on the product. It's so cool. I was at the airport just last week, and you see people wheeling around their caddy bags. But funny story, and this is a little lesson for the e-com owners, or maybe you've done this. I thought it'd be great and great content for me to just kind of, take a photo of some people in their caddy bag walking down the airport. So I'm walking through, and I'm walking past this couple I'm just trying to get the right photo, and they turn around and they're like, are you all right? And I realized I look like a creepy guy that's just had my phone out filming them, and I was started fumbling over. I'm like, oh, it's my luggage, brand. And they're looking at me like, who is this cooker?
Did they get it?
Oh, I think I got it out. They kind of politely smiled and went on their way, but there certainly wasn't a good explanation. But yeah,
do you remember the first time you saw it out in the wild?
Yeah, probably a year ago we started the KADI in the wild. We have a Slack channel for it because we think it's cool, and that's when we first started seeing it and asking people about it. And it's fun just going to people and be like, oh, what do you think of that bag? And they're like, oh yeah, I love this bag. I've been traveling around with it. It's been here, and I think it's super cool. Super cool.
So cool. Congrats, Harry. I love the evolution. I love that you never sit still. You should start enjoying holidays. I know it's burdensome, but thank you so much for sharing today. And I also love that as agency owner, that you're kind of putting everything to the test. You're putting it all on the line, right? Because you're showing that we can walk this walk, and it's a really refreshing approach.
100%. I think it's good to put your money where your mouth is. You can say you've grown brands, but till you have an e-com brand, it's really telling. But it's really cool to just, I think, still have the agency super focused in SEO as that grows out, but understanding that we're a small part of the puzzle, right? But a valuable and an important part.
Well, especially for Lawrence, because you should start giving you discounts on it.
100%, Lawrence. Please hook me up.
Harry, thank you for joining us, and thank you for all your support on Add to Cart. We really appreciate it. It's been great having you on board, and awesome to chat today.
Thank you. Likewise.
I always get off a call or a conversation with Harry and go, oh, maybe SEO isn't as complicated as I thought it was. Maybe building a business isn't as difficult as what I think it is. But we all know it is. Harry just is able to explain things so simply and so clearly that it's no wonder that he's given his team, that's now over 100 people, the confidence and the clarity to be really, really good at their jobs. What an incredible guy and just amazing person to riff with. So I really enjoyed that. What a pleasure. There are 3 big lessons that I took out of this that I think that any of us can take into our e-commerce businesses. Number 1, Harry was very clear on this. We are underutilizing digital PR when it comes to SEO. Yes, it's very tempting to do all the technical elements of SEO, right? All the way from sitemaps to internal linking to all the little technical site speed, the rest. But Harry said, actually, they're the small 1%ers. What you actually need to be doing is focusing on digital PR and in particular, using data that you own to tell stories about the category you're in. Don't use digital PR to go out and talk about a new product that you're launching in market or a new store that you're opening up. Think about what gets the headlines and then connect it to the data that you've got or potentially the audience that you've got to get the data and tell that story. As Harry explained there, the flow-on effects around creating authority in your category by releasing that data and having it published on credible sites and media publications will do way more than any technical tweaking that you might do in the background. Number 2, test your unit economics before launch. Harry was pretty open around the fake ads that they ran for KADI before they even had a product ready to sell. But it's never been easier to spin up ads using AI, using product imagery that you might already have or mock-ups, and take that out to market. Obviously, you've got to be very careful around what you're promising if you have orders come through from those ads. But as Harry said, he was able to model, even if it wasn't perfect, a rough idea on what the cost per acquisition or cost per customer is going to be and build that into the business model, build that into the pricing from the get-go so that you know what you're dealing with ahead of time. Really smart strategy, both for if you're launching a new brand, but also maybe if you're launching a new product or a new product range. Give those fake ads a go. And number 3, don't over-optimize early. It's one that I hadn't thought about a lot, but Harry explained it really well, is that when you're a young brand or you're just starting out, the temptation is to go really hard and make sure you've got category pages for everything that you've got, all your product pages set up with a heap of information, huge footers, doing all the SEO essentials correctly. But Harry actually said, strip it back because you haven't got the authority yet from the engines and they'll just give up on you. So when you are starting out or you're early in your journey, really focus on the key categories or the key products and push them hard and then expand out rather than trying to do everything at once and confusing the engines. All right, that's it from us today. Thank you again to StudioHawk and KADI for bringing us today's special episode. I hope that you enjoyed it and got a lot out of that from both inspiration from an agency owner who is now testing his hand at brand, but also there was a heap of SEO fundamentals and AI fundamentals in there for you. Now, if you want to discuss anything that you heard in today's episode, come on over and join the Add to Cart community. It's free to join. There's over 500 e-commerce professionals in there ready to discuss and get nerdy on all things e-commerce. You can join at addtocart.com.au. Jump on over, fill out the application form, and we'll get you in there quick smart. Thanks again for joining me on Add to Cart. See you next time.